Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started because I've got that it's 10 o'clock and I'm sure some people will come in just a few minutes. So, what I want to do today is I want to just take a few minutes, probably about 30, 45 minutes, and allow us to do a review and go over a few things about your upcoming test, assignments that are due, and then what to expect in the next unit. So let's focus on the test first, and I just kind of want to go over what you can expect tomorrow. So that way, when you get in there, you won't waste time just kind of freaking out because you don't know what to do. So I'm opening the test tomorrow. It's already scheduled to open up at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it will shut down at noon. And I know that some of y'all had a little trouble with submissions. And if you see that it's going to submit late or you had trouble pulling things up, all you got to do is shoot me a remind so that I know, so that I can see. Because when I see it come in late, I start to wonder. So just shoot me a remind message and say, hey, I'm having trouble getting it to load, or whatever, and we can work from there. But it'll be open from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Um, I have it set up so that hopefully you can type directly into the document. But if for some reason your computer or phone won't allow you to, you can just work it out on a sheet of paper. Just please make sure that you write very neatly and that you use like a dark pencil or dark pen so that I can see your answers real easily. These are the topics it's going to cover. You're going to see some fill in the blank with vocab. You're going to see some questions about the lab assignment that you had to complete this unit. There's some questions about the notes, and when I say notes, I'm really talking about like classifying reactions, like what type of reaction is this, what type of reaction is that, and then you're going to have a section where you're just doing reactions. You're going to have some that are already written out for you, and your job is just to balance them with coefficients. You're going to have to classify some reactions as one of the 5 types. And then I'm going to have a section where it's word equations, and your job is to write out the balanced chemical equation. Okay, so that's what you can expect on the test for tomorrow. It's going to take you about an hour plus to get it done, and so you definitely want to make sure that you have set up some time that you can get in there and get it done. Don't log in at 11:30 and expect to get it finished. Okay, so you want to log in closer to the 9 o'clock mark. So set you an alarm for tomorrow so you can get up, get it done, and get it submitted. Um, so let's talk a little bit. We're going to come back to the review because that's what I want to work on today. We're going to talk about those 4 reaction classifications. We're going to look at just balancing some equations, and then we'll work on a couple word equations. And then if you have questions about some, we can spend whatever time we have left over working on some that you may not quite understand. I do want to take a second and talk about assignments. So we have a lot of assignments for this unit because practice just makes us better. And all of those are going to be due by midnight tomorrow night. Now look, in order for you to be as successful as you can here, you really need to have the majority of these done, especially the lab activity, the word equation worksheets, because these assignments are going to be found on this test. And so if you've gotten this done, you've gotten your feedback, you're ready to go. Okay, so try to get your assignments wrapped up today if you've not. I know some of y'all are holding on to assignments, and you're going to wait to upload. Go ahead and upload the ones that you're ready to upload because I'm trying to grade them as I get them. So I was up this morning, I think about 5 grading assignments. And so I'll grade for a little while, then get up and take a break, then come back and grade. And I'm going to try to get all your grades updated in SAM by the evening tonight. So, all right. And then we're going to talk about the next unit at the very end, what we can expect. So let's go on to the review and talk a little bit about it and what you can expect on the review. Or what the review will cover. I want to start by classifying reactions. This was a video, and it also was the jitterbug activity and a couple other things covered classifications of reactions. And so I want to go over those 5 classifications just real quickly. So, of course, we have synthesis. Oops, that's not spelled right. Synthesis. And of course, when we see synthesis, that means we're making something. So it would be like A plus B yields A, B. Okay. Then decomposition. Decomposition is the exact opposite. That's where we have AB and we break it down into its 2 parts, A plus B. Then we have a single replacement, sometimes called single displacement, exact same thing. That would be like A plus BC is going to give you B plus AC. So basically, A boots out B and runs off with C. And then we have double replacement or double displacement, same thing. And this is where you would have A and B and X and Y, and A runs off with Y and B runs off with X. Okay, so they just swap partners. And then the last one is combustion. And I've had several of you that have missed classifying some combustion reactions. So I want to spend just a second there. Combustion reactions have a very basic like skeleton. It's always going to be some type of hydrocarbon. Typically for this class, it's going to be a carbon with some number and a hydrogen with some number behind it. All combustion reactions will have a hydrocarbon. They will all have oxygen added to them because we know in order for something to burn, there has to be oxygen present. I know that everybody in here at some point has probably had a candle and you put the lid on the candle or you put a glass over the candle and it went out. That was because it used up all the oxygen. So we have to have oxygen in order for combustion to take place. So the hydrocarbon plus oxygen, and it's always going to yield carbon dioxide and water. So the only thing that typically changes in a combustion is going to be this hydrocarbon. That's going to be the only thing that would be different, but everything else will be the same format for a combustion. Okay, so those are our 5 types of reactions. And like I said, you're going to have a couple of questions on the test where you need to go in and classify reactions. And of course, we've had 2 worksheets. One where you just classify ones that were already given to you balanced, and then one where you had to balance them and then classify them. And those are both assignments for this unit. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about classifying reactions? Okay, so let's go on to the next thing that you're going to see on the test, which is going to be just balancing. And this is where I'm going to give you some reactions, and your job is going to be to balance those reactions using coefficients. And remember, anytime we balance a reaction, we are not allowed to change the subscripts. We're only allowed to change the coefficients. So some examples of these types of problems would be something like this. And A. So I may give you something like this. So take a second, balance that one. Shouldn't take you, but for just 3 or 4 seconds.
2, 1, 2.
All right, 2, 1, 2. And he's absolutely right. 2 sodiums, 2 sodiums, 2 chlorines, 2 chlorines, and now it is balanced. Okay. What about this one? Balance that one for me.
2, 1, 2, 1.
All right, 2, 1, 2, 1. Very good. Okay. So you'll have a section on the test where I'm going to give you these reactions, and your job is to go in and add coefficients in there, okay? And when they say stuff like 2, 1, 2, 1, that's just the coefficients are what they're giving me. 2, understood 1, 2, understood 1, okay? What type of reaction is this one?
Synthesis.
Very good. We have A, B, and we made it AB, so that's synthesis. What is this one? KiBr2 gives us KBr plus I2. Single
displacement.
Very good. Single displacement or single replacement. And that's because we have a couple and a single, and then a new couple forms, and there's a new single. So we know that that's a single displacement or single replacement. Very good. Okay, so let me ask you, does anyone have questions about balancing reactions if the reaction is given to you? Or is there a specific one that maybe you don't know or you didn't understand and you would like for us to go over it?
We have one.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. I got to find the textbook. It's on the word equations.
On word equations.
It's, what page was it? I think it was, you have a mark, Rosie, come on, man. Okay, number 6 on the first one. It's one of those combustion ones, I think. Right? It looks like one. I don't know. I have trouble, like, if you have, like, on one side, calcium hydroxide plus phosphoric acid. Also, those are kind of confusing me, like phosphoric acid and sulfuric acid, sulfuric, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know what to put.
Okay. For the acids, now typically at this time in class, I would have given you a list of acids to memorize, but because we are doing so many other things, I'm not having you memorize those. So my answer on the acids, if you don't know, Google it. Google's going to be your friend. So just Google the reaction, and as you or Google the compound, and as you start using these, some of them are just going to kind of stick with you. Like hydrochloric acid, probably everybody knows is HCl, and some of these other ones you'll learn them as we go. So let's look at that one. I'm going to write it out, and that'll kind of go along with this since nobody else really had a question about a specific one, and then we can just take time and look at all the different ones. So let me pull that one up. So she's talking about number 6 on worksheet 1 of the word equations. So for that one, they tell us it's calcium hydroxide, and it's being added to phosphoric acid. And that's going to produce calcium phosphate and water. Okay, so I have to start by putting in all of my compounds. So we're going to do that first. So calcium hydroxide is Ca, and that's a +2. And hydroxide is OH, and that's a -1. So I'm going to have to crisscross that. And when I do that, I put parentheses. So I get CaOH2. So that's my formula for calcium hydroxide. Okay. Then phosphoric acid, I would Google it, or I would just know that that is H3PO4. Okay. And, you know, one way that you can kind of get an idea, acids always start with hydrogen. And this is a phosphate, which is a -3, and that's a +1. So it balances out H3PO4. And then we have calcium phosphate. So that's calcium that has a +2 and phosphate that has a -3. So I'm going to have to crisscross that. So I get Ca3PO4 2. And then we have water, H2O. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Would this be considered a combustion one because it does water
No,
or
because
not?
do you see
Okay.
oxygen anywhere? Mm-mm. And that's perfectly fine, because a lot of people, when they see water or carbon dioxide sitting there, they immediately go to combustion. This one would not be, because there's no oxygen, so it's not going to catch on fire, and it doesn't produce carbon dioxide. So looking at this one, it's kind of disguises itself, but I'm going to show you a little trick, okay? Do you see how this has a hydroxide on one side? On the other side, it has a water. Okay. A little trick that one of my chemistry teachers told me was, if you have a hydroxide on the reactants or products and water is on the opposite side, change water. Instead of writing it as H2O, write it as HOH. And now that gives you an OH on this side and an OH on this side, and it makes it a little bit easier to balance, okay? Now, I'm going to tell you, in college, if you leave this as HOH, though, they're probably going to get mad at you. So when you finish balancing, just turn it back to H2O. So let me show you how I work this one. So I have 1 calcium here, and I have 3 calciums here. So I'm going to come over here and put a 3. So now, how many hydroxides do I have on the reactant side?
6.
6. So I'm going to come over here and put a 6, and that's going to give me 6 hydroxides right here. Okay, so I have 3 calcium, 6 hydroxides, 6 hydroxides. I have 3 hydrogens here, and how many hydrogens do I have on this side? 6. So I need to put a 2 right here. So 3 calcium, 6 hydroxide, 6 hydroxide, 6 hydrogens, 6 hydrogens. I'm not going to count this hydrogen because I counted it with the hydroxide, okay? So I'm leaving hydrogen all by its little lonesome. So 6 hydrogens, 6 hydrogens, and then I have 2 phosphates and 2 phosphates. So is it balanced now? Yep. So when you get finished with it, you might want to write it out a little cleaner. And then at that time, you can change your water back to H2O. And then there's your answer. Okay, now looking at it, because you had a Ca and an OH and a hydrogen and a phosphate, and then you end up with calcium and phosphate together. So that means this calcium left with phosphate, and then this hydrogen left with hydroxide. What kind of reaction would this be?
Double replacement.
Double replacement. That's exactly right. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, this is probably as hard as it gets. And really and truthfully, and I'm going to tell you right now, hydroxides and waters, I have to do this sometimes because sometimes it just will not work for me. And it's, you can see it's nothing difficult. It's just you get a little bogged down in all the hydrogens because they're all over the place. And if you're getting it without doing this, don't worry about it. That's just a little trick. Okay, so let's just talk about problems that you may have had on worksheets. Does anybody have any problems on a worksheet that you need to go over or want me to work out as a group that you can see? Just unmute for me and I'll answer it for you.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know which worksheet this is. Hold on. I guess it would be worksheet 2, maybe. It's just like a question on classifying.
Okay.
So if you have a reaction and it has O2 out beside it, I get really confused like on how to balance those and what they're called, because
Do you have a specific one?
yes, it's It's number 4 on the paper. don't
Number
know which
4
one it
on the first sheet or the second sheet?
The second sheet.
Is it the one that N2 plus H2 yields NH3?
No, it's NaNO3 yields NaNO2 plus O2.
Oh, okay. I see where you are now. All right, well, let's work that one out. All right. So let's do that one. So on this one, we have NaNO3, so sodium nitrate, and it's breaking down to sodium nitrite and oxygen. Okay, so classifying this one, we're starting with one compound and we're getting 2. Okay, so if we have 1 on the reactant side, what does this have to be?
Decomposition.
Yes, if you start with 1 on the reactant side, it's decomp. If you end with 1 on the product side, it's synthesis. Okay, and if you looked at it and weren't really paying attention, you might go, oh, that's single displacement. But because there's only 1, the only thing it can be, nothing can replace, so it has to be a decomp. And then when we balance it, I have 1 sodium, 1 sodium. I have 1 nitrogen, 1 nitrogen, and then these oxygens are causing a problem. I've got 3 oxygens here and 2 oxygens here and 2 here, so that's 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 2 right here. And that's going to turn this into 4 plus 2 is 6. So then I can go put a 2 here. So that's 2 sodiums, 2 nitrogens, 2 nitrogens, and then 6 oxygens, and then 4 here plus the 2 gives me 6. And that balances it. Okay. So does anybody else have a question about any of them?
Yes.
Okay.
On another one of the word equations, number 7,
Okay.
works on the first one, the first page.
All right. The copper and the sulfuric acid. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at that. So this is a word equation, and they're telling us that copper 2 is reacting with sulfuric acid. So copper is Cu, and then sulfuric acid is H2SO4. And then they tell us that it's going to make copper 2 sulfate. So that's a +2 and a -2, so they're balanced. And then we're going to form water and sulfur dioxide. That's not pretty written. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so I've got 1 copper and 1 copper. I have 2 hydrogens here and 2 hydrogens there. I've got 1 sulfate and 1 sulfate, but here's where the problem is. I got this stupid sulfur dioxide out here that's just totally throwing me off, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over, since I have 1 sulfur here and 1 sulfur here, that's going to tell me I have 2 sulfurs. So I'm going to come over here. The only way to make this 2 sulfurs on this side is to put a 2 right here. Okay. So now I have 4 hydrogens,
Okay.
and I have 2 sulfurs, and I have 8 oxygens. Okay. So to make this 4 hydrogens on this side, I need to put a 2 on that side. So now I'm going to have to count up each individual one and make sure I've got it balanced. So 1 copper, so they're good. 4 hydrogens, that's good. And because sulfur or sulfate and sulfur dioxide are split up over here, I'm going to have to do each individual element. So that's 2 sulfurs, and then 1 plus 1 gives me 2 sulfurs, and then 8 oxygens, and I have 4 right here and 2 right here. So 4 plus 2 is 6, and then 2 right there gives me 8.
Okay.
All
I
right.
got that.
If this hadn't been there, it would have been
It
balanced.
was fine.
No,
No.
it wouldn't have, because oxygen would have been messed up.
Uh-huh.
So yeah. But anyway.
Gotcha.
All right. And I wouldn't ask you to classify one of these because that's kind of a weird one. All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody?
I will.
Okay.
Number 8, the word equations 3.
Okay. Number 8 on the word equation 3. Is that the sodium oxide and water?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Let's look at that one. So number 8, it tells us that sodium oxide. So sodium is Na and it's a +1. And oxide is O and it's a -2. So I've got to balance that. So Na2O. And it's going to combine with water, H2O. And that's going to form sodium hydroxide.
Yeah.
And that's a +1 and a -1, so it's balanced. Okay. All right. So look, I have a hydroxide on one side and a water on the other side. So now I can use my trick. I can say HOH and keep the hydroxide as one unit, and that will save me a little trouble there. Can try it that way, and it may not work that way. Sometimes it doesn't. So so let me just balance it normal for you. So I have 2 sodiums here and I have 1 here, so I'm just going to drop a 2 right there. And so now I have 2 sodiums and 2 sodiums, and then I have 1 oxygen here and 1 oxygen there, which gives me 2. And right there is how many? 2. And then 2 hydrogens, and that balances it. And what type of reaction is this one?
Synthesis.
Synthesis. Very good. All right, Abigail, did you have a question?
Oh, yeah. Can you do like a reaction where you have to simplify the coefficient down?
Yeah.
Because didn't you say like if they were
Let's see. Here, let me just write one that would be incorrect, and I'll show you what to look for. So on this one, let's say that I balance this one out. AlBr3 plus 6Cl2 yields 4 AlCl3 plus 6Br2. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a kind of a word of advice. Anytime that you're balancing an equation and you notice that you have put a coefficient in front of every single part of that reaction, okay? If you don't have it in front of everything like this one, you probably don't have a problem. But notice how every single factor within that reaction, I went and put a coefficient, okay? Now, if I work this one out and figure out how much, it's balanced. I've got 4 aluminum, 12 bromine, and then I got 12 chlorine and 12 chlorine. It's balanced. But notice 4, 6, 4, 6. What can I take out of those?
you can do 2.
That's right.
Like,
So then it becomes 2 AlBr3 plus 3 Cl2 yields 2 AlCl3 plus 3 Br2. This one is correct. This one is wrong. Okay. Now, the only time that this should be a problem is if you put a coefficient in front of every single part of that reaction. Okay. I see it a lot on students like this one right here. This is one that I see a lot of students not simplify. I see it a lot of times on combustion reactions. So just remember when you get finished, and that's why I tell people, like if we were in the classroom, I would tell you to underline your coefficients or write them in a different color. And then when you look down before you move to the next one, if you notice, hey, I've got something in front of every one of them, just go real quickly check to see if you can factor out something to simplify them. Okay? Think of it as like fractions in math. All right, anybody else have a question?
yeah. And
You're fine. Go ahead.
So like before, sorry.
Say it again.
Before you simplified, if there was a 2 in front of one of them, it would just reduce down to 1.
To 1. Yeah. Yeah. Let me see if I have one like
Okay.
that. Well, let's look at this one. Let's say that I have this. I have I'm trying to find a good one. All right, let's say that I have 4H2 plus 4NO yields 4H2O plus 2N2. So notice every part has a number in front of it. So I'm going to go, ooh, that's a red flag. Let me just go check. 4, 4, 4, 2. What can I do to all of those? Factor out of 2, right? So it becomes 2H2 plus 2NO yields 2H2O plus N2. Okay. And notice if you have one that you didn't put a coefficient in front of, that's a 1. So you're probably okay. It's just going to be whenever you have a coefficient in front of every part of the reaction, that's going to be your kind of red flag. Let me go check that. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions about one that you may just can't figure it out? Anybody? Okay. All right. Well, tomorrow your test will go live at 9:30. I mean, sorry, 9 o'clock, and it'll be live from 9 to noon. So you'll have 3 hours to get it done. Like I said, I would definitely go closer to the 9 o'clock time. Because if you have connection problems or something happens, if you wait till 11:30, it's going to be very difficult to get finished. Okay, so set an alarm. Go ahead and do it as soon as we finish to wake you up a little bit before 9 so you can get in there and get started. Assignments, try to get those uploaded. And if you're sending me pictures of your work, that is perfectly fine. But if you would, maybe underline your coefficients so that I can see them real easily, or write them out to the side like 1, 2, 2, 1 or whatever, so that I can check them easily. Because if you have a lot of writing and you don't make your coefficients well seen, it's hard for me to grade them. And it takes me a lot longer to grade stuff like this than it does in normal classrooms. For our next unit is going to be on reaction stoichiometry. I am waiting to hear from the powers that be what our plan is for the rest of the semester, what our stop time is, all of that kind of information. And my understanding was they're meeting today. And so hopefully they're going to roll out an email today or tomorrow that'll give us a little guidance. But I'm thinking that for our next unit, because it's math, so it's stoichiometry that we've already done, plus reactions fused together. I'm going to have to do a lot of little video series. And so I'm going to do that. And there's some Khan Academy videos that we can watch. It'll help you as well. I think you'll do fine looking at everybody's work and what we just accomplished, because we had worked on it for spring break. I think we'll be okay. But hopefully I'll have everything set up so that I can roll out the next unit for you on Monday. Okay. So does anyone have any questions about anything before we sign off?
Do you know what they're gonna do about exams?
I do not. That's what I'm waiting to hear. I don't know what they'll do, and I'm assuming we would still do exemptions. So I really don't know how that's going to work. So I'm waiting to hear. Mr. Fortberry and I have kind of been kicking around stuff at home, but I mean, he doesn't even know yet either, because I honestly don't think that even our administration had an idea. Because, you know, as I was telling my first block class we met earlier, it was one of those things where I kind of suspected it was going to happen, but when the governor said that it was going to happen, we all just kind of sat there on the couch in shock. Like, Jackson just looked at me, he said, did he just say that? And I was like, he did. And Mr. Fortmary got up. He's like, I can't even do this. And he just got up and walked out because we're tired of this. We like being at school. We like seeing our students. And this has been difficult. And so, but anyway, so as soon as we know something, we'll let you know. So hopefully I'll have some news for you today. Okay. Anybody else have a question about anything?
Do you think they're going to shorten our summer?
I don't know. I'm almost going to say no, and that's because so many schools right now are pushing back the start date of school next year. I know that a couple of friends of mine that teach in other states, they have already pushed back their school start date to September.
Wow.
So, but
That's a little too late.
I argued the fact that other than maybe being a week behind, we are pretty much on schedule in this class. That week after spring break where everybody was just like, oh, we're going to have a week off for Corona and we'll go back to school, no big deal. That one little week when we didn't do anything, that's the only week we're behind. We're still, getting after it. And so I told, I commented on a post that somebody said something about going back to or shortening the summer. And I commented back, I said, I don't know why we would. I said, my students are doing what they're supposed to. And so, because we're working just as hard as we're supposed to.
Well,
So
they've already canceled prom. Did you hear about that?
did they cancel it?
Yeah.
It stinks. I hate that for y'all. Yeah, it's been a roller coaster of emotions here at our house. We'll find something positive to be excited about, and then the next minute we're all just kind of look at each other. And I ain't gonna lie, I think everybody at some point has either broken down or gotten really angry and had to walk out, because every one of us, it seems like we're mourning stuff. Like we'll get over it and then we get hit with something else. Yesterday, I think our biggest thing was baseball. I think that was kind of like the icing on the cake for Jackson. Like he knew, but when they put it in black and white, and I'm sure those of you who lost softball and baseball and stuff like that, I think that was his that was kind of his icing on the cake. And then it's been crazy. So I have my
Our
moments.
class is still waiting on a regular concert season for band.
Exactly.
True.
Exactly. I know.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
I know it's been tough.
Maybe senior year.
Yeah, maybe. I'm thinking that maybe in July we should just all get together and have a prom, a band concert, play some baseball and softball. We'll just do it all at one time, like a weekend festivity. We can
Let's do it.
celebrate St. Patrick's Day and Easter,
St. Patrick's Day
Cinco
in
de
July.
Mayo. We could do everything at that one time together, and it'll just be like an epic weekend of celebration. So, I think that's what we're gonna have to do.
Well, shoot. Anybody want to buy a prom dress? Hit me up.
Yeah, same.
Then I won't wear mine to homecoming next year.
Mine's very it was expensive, it's elegant, and it's just chilling in my closet.
We'll save it for next year. You can save yours for next year. So we'll invite the seniors to come back. Y'all can come back and slum it with the high schoolers. All right. So,
what are they gonna do about like graduation and stuff?
I don't know. Me and Mr. Fortberry were kicking around ideas last night. I saw on the coast where they were doing a graduation parade. And they had the students standing on the road every 6 feet for social distancing, holding a sign with their name, and everybody drove through. It was kind of like Princess's Own Parade, but it was like graduates on parade.
The Jeep. Everybody got a Jeep or something.
Yeah,
That actually sounds cool.
They offer Jeep.
I don't know. And then I say, it's possible we just put it off and we graduate at the end of the summer. So
I'm fine with that.
We'll figure it out. You can honestly say that you have had the most unique 2019-2020 school year in the history of school
This
year.
summer sucks.
We're not in summer yet.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, and I tell you
technically
too,
in summer.
We are now.
Mr. Fortberry and I were just kind of talking about different things, and